So one of the biggest questions that I've been getting this year is from a lot of people, what sight should I run on my setup? What sight do I need on my setup? What do you think the best sight is? And what would you recommend for me? So we're gonna go over all the sights that I got, going from cheapest to the most expensive. We're gonna run down and go over which ones are the best for you. This is an old Toxonic sight. I think I paid back in the day probably 60 bucks, maybe 40 bucks for this thing. It's just your run-of-the-mill 5-pin sight, bolt straight up to your bow, 2 bolt holes in there for whatever preference you have, and then the screw setups for your quiver. It is not micro adjust. It does not have first, second, or third axis adjustments, but it does have a hole for you to thread in a light to put in a light to see your pins. The adjustments on it are not micro adjust. You can adjust your elevation yardage on your pins and dial them in with the screw holes on the side and adjust them up and down that way. Or you can do your windage and elevation by doing that screw there and this screw here, moving it with your fingers. They do give you hash marks to go off of to be able to try and dial it in precisely with your hands. But very crude, very run-of-the-mill sight. Now the person that I would recommend this for would be the beginner bow hunter, or the person that doesn't want to spend, prosumer price, don't want to spend $150, $200, $300 on a sight, but they just want something that's efficient and that will work. Now, if you're hunting in wooded areas, what I hear a lot of guys say is, if I'm hunting in woods and a buck's chasing a doe, I don't have time to sit there and run my knob down or whatever. I need multiple pins to where if I have a split-second decision, I know that I can just put a pin on the deer and I know it's going to hit him good. So if you're that person, this sight's for you. They do make these same setups for people that if multiple pins confuse you and you want a one pin, they do make setups with these sights with no second, third axis adjustments and a dial wheel to be able to have a one pin sight that is a mover that can go out to 60 yards and maybe a little bit farther. But keep in mind, you might have a little bit of left and rights on saddle and heels and shooting out of a tree stand just because you don't have them adjustments. Now moving way up onto the CBE Tech Target. Now, as the name states, it is a target sight. You do have first, second, and third axis adjustments on this sight. It is a one pin sight that with the dial wheel, it's a mover, and it can go all the way from this sight tape set from 20 to 110, and you do have a single pin in it, and you also have micro click adjustments with your windage. All you got to do is flip that knob down and micro click for windage. It also has a screw there so you can move your dial indicator pin up and down and get your half yardage or your yardages exactly precise to what they need to be. You can also disconnect this bar right here and loosen it up and do major elevation changes up and down with your hand. So the only problem with this sight that I see is even in the housing itself, it does not have a light hole to be able to thread it into the housing and shine a light straight on the pin. You will have to have like a Zebros or LP light kit where it will go in and lock into the fiber casing there. It also does have the ability to be able to take it out, since it is a target sight, and put a lens in it. like so. Or you can leave that out. Now what you can do with this sight is you can go through and you can find a housing and be able to have a multi-pin housing, or you can take this out and get another housing from Shrewd CBE. You can get one from UltraView and stick those scopes on there, and they're all compatible with this CBE Tech Target. Now this sight, back in the day, I believe that I ended up paying $200 for this sight. I would recommend this more on the prosumer side, someone that is going to shoot tournaments, someone that's going to shoot longer distances, someone that's going to need the first, second, and third axis adjustments, someone that is going to get a little bit confused with multiple pins, or just feels like they don't need to have multiple pins, and also someone that's going to be hunting out west, more wide open ranges, also in the woods, but wants to be able to have all the features of a tournament sight in their setup. Which brings me to the last sight in our roster, which is the B3 Exact Hunter. Now they have an Exact Hunter and they have an Exact Target. The only difference is with the Target, you get the micro clicks and you get metal sight tapes on it, where this one, all you got is the tapes. Now this sight does have third, second, and first axis adjustments, with the other third axis adjustment being able to dial in your bubble on the bottom with these two set screws here. It also has multiple pin locations throughout the sight to where you can move your pin wherever you want it in the sight. It has the ability to have a lens. And I got one in here from Brian's Custom Lens. It's a 4-power I got in there. Is what I run in tournaments this year. And I use this sight in tournaments. But this sight, unlike the CBE, has the ability to be able to put a light straight into the housing on it. And it has micro adjust as far as the clicks. You undo that screw there, and you have micro adjust for your windage, and then you can dial in for your up and down on your yardage with this turn dial, or for big gang adjustments you can take those screws out right here and then go down and put them back in whichever way you want it throughout these holes throughout this bar here. It is a dovetail bar, as you can tell, so you can move it in and out, sight tune it as well. If you're going back through and you're torque tuning, rest tuning, whatever you want to do, and then be able to go through and group tune and set it exactly to where you want it to be in your peep, to where your peep centers around the house and on it. Now with this sight, I would say it is on the top end of the prosumer level, coming in at $360 for this sight. But here's the thing, for those of you that want to run just a single pin, you have the ability to run a single pin with this. Also with this sight, get it in a 5, you can get it in a 3. I have it in a 2-pin here, with the top one being 10 yards difference from my bottom pin being my mover, and it works out pretty good. So with this, it's actually, so this is actually what the sight comes with. It is the hunting housing, and it's actually quite a bit, you can see it's actually quite a bit smaller than the tournament housing is. And you can order it, custom order it in a 3-pin, a 4-pin, 5-pin, or a 2-pin, or a 1-pin. But what I done with it is, this is my hunting housing that I got, and I ordered it in a 5 and ended up going with a 2 for those guys that still want the ability to be able to have a multi-pin sight, but a mover as well, so you can shoot out to the farther distances. So if you're hunting in the woods and a buck's coming through chasing a doe and you need a quick shot on him, you know, you judge the distance, he's 35 yards, you draw back, you split your pins, put it right in the kill zone, and the deer goes off and dies. You have the ability to do that, but also if you got a deer that's 80 yards away in a bean field and it's getting crunch time and you need to get him, and you know you can make that shot, you have the ability to dial it down to 80 yards and poke him out there at long bombs. But the way that I have this one set up is actually with my top pin being my mover and my bottom pin being 10 yards difference than my mover. I had it at 20, and the way that the arrow was dropping, it really wasn't working out that good. So I would say if you moved it down to 10 yards, it'll work out better for you. You might be able to move it to 15 yards difference, but 10 yards seem to work the best. Once you get out past 15 yards difference in between them, stuff just starts getting wonky. At least for my setup, it did. And the hunting housing actually comes with a hole in it as well to be able to put in the light, to be able to shine on your pins and have a light on top and on bottom. What I did notice with this one is, of course, with multiple pins, your light's going to refract on, or your light's going to shine on one pin more than it is the other one. So just be aware of that. Whatever works best for you, whatever works best for your eyes, that's where I'd put the light at, whether it be top or bottom. I would say with this sight is that this is for the prosumer that wants to be able to take a target sight and go shoot tournaments with it, and then take the scope off, switch it out, and be able to use the same exact sight for hunting. It's on the higher end, the prosumer level of sights. It's got the best of the best features on it, and this thing is built like a tank. So that's it for all the sights, guys. I hope this helps somebody out in their decision making on what sight that they want to be able to buy before season this year. If you're looking at switching out sights, what might work best for you, what situations you're getting in, because that's the biggest thing with sights is I don't just look at a sight and look at all the features on it, even though that's a big thing. I look at the situations that I get myself into, what I'm hunting for, what I know I'm going to be hunting for, try to hunt for in the future. A lot of my shots are in the woods and also in open fields. Most of my property is field, but whenever I get the chance to go in the rut and hunt the woods, especially going out of state and hunting in wood situations, I like to be able to have that multi-pin feature on there, just like I said, in case a buck's coming through quick and I need to make a decision. But be able to move that pin down there at longer shots, since my farm's mainly fields. So I hope this helps you out, guys. Y'all take care. Shoot straight.